The streets of Crestwood were quiet, shrouded in the muted light of an overcast afternoon. Ava Sullivan stood at the edge of the crumbling town square, her sketchpad pressed against her chest. The place hadn't changed much in the 5 years since she'd left. Still the same uneven cobblestones, still the same peeling murals. But something about being back made her stomach tighten. Crestwood wasn't just her hometown. It was the place she had run from, the place she had vowed never to return. She scanned the square, taking in the faded facades of once bustling businesses. Her eyes lingered on the boarded-up library where she used to spend hours drawing in the margins of old books. Returning here was supposed to be a career opportunity, but now it felt like walking into a trap. She wasn't here by choice. A city council commission to revitalize Crestwood's historic district had been too good to pass up. It was the kind of high-profile project that could launch her art career to the next level, proving to everyone, including herself, that leaving Crestwood had been the right decision. But the thought of running into him made her pulse quicken. Him. Liam Carter. The name alone stirred a knot of regret. Their last conversation had been anything but civil. She'd left Crestwood in a whirlwind of anger, ambition, and unspoken goodbyes. If he was still here, and she knew he was, she planned to avoid him at all costs. Fate had other plans. The gallery was dimly lit, with soft murmurs of conversation filling the air. Ava kept to the edges, studying the murals and sculptures that lined the walls. She needed to make connections, find supporters for her project. She didn't expect the voice that cut through her thoughts. Ava Sullivan, back in Crestwood. Didn't think I'd see the day. She froze. The voice was familiar, too familiar. Turning slowly, her eyes locked onto Liam. He stood a few feet away, arms crossed, his sharp features even more defined than she remembered. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in his posture said enough. "I didn't think you'd still be here," she said, forcing her tone to stay neutral. "Some of us don't leave when things get hard." The words were pointed, but his voice was steady, controlled. Ava bristled. "And some of us don't stay stagnant." The air between them thickened. She wanted to say more, to defend herself, but the weight of their history pressed against her ribs. Their last fight echoed in her mind, a bitter reminder of the way she'd left everything, everyone, behind. Before either of them could speak again, a familiar voice interrupted. "There you are." Mrs. Hayworth, Crestwood's most persistent community organizer, bustled toward them, her smile wide. "Just the people I need." Both Ava and Liam turned to her, their mutual tension momentarily forgotten. "I've got big news, Mrs. Hayworth announced, beaming. "The council has approved the revitalization project, and you two are going to lead it." "What?" Ava and Liam said in unison, their disbelief almost comical. Mrs. Hayworth's grin didn't falter. "Ava, your art has the spark we need to bring life back to this neighborhood. And Liam, your architectural expertise is unmatched. Together, you're the perfect team." Ava's throat tightened. "I'm not sure." "No arguments," Mrs. Hayworth said firmly. "This is bigger than both of you. Crestwood needs this." Liam shot Ava a wary glance. She could see the conflict in his eyes, the same mixture of pride and irritation she felt. But neither of them could afford to walk away. For Ava, the project was a chance to prove herself as a serious artist. For Liam, it was an opportunity to restore the town he loved. "Fine," Ava said after a long pause. "Fine," Liam echoed, though his tone was less than enthusiastic. They shook hands, the touch brief and tense. As Mrs. Hayworth walked away, humming to herself, Ava felt the weight of what she'd just agreed to. Working with Liam wasn't going to be easy, but as she glanced at him again, she couldn't ignore the spark of tension, of history, of something unresolved that lingered between them. Early stages of connection. The first planning meeting between Ava and Liam was tense. They sat at opposite ends of the long table in the community center conference room, the space cluttered with blueprints, sketches, and coffee cups. Mrs. Hayworth had excused herself with a vague comment about trusting them to work their magic. leaving them alone to hash out a vision for the project. Your sketches are bold, Liam began, his tone carefully measured, but they don't account for structural limitations. Ava raised an eyebrow, her pencil tapping against her notepad. And your blueprints are safe. If this project is supposed to inspire people, it needs more than structural integrity. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the heater. Ava refused to break eye contact, and Liam, ever the pragmatist, refused to yield. Finally, Liam exhaled sharply. We're not going to get anywhere by talking in circles. Let's start with the basics. Fine, Ava said, leaning back in her chair. But you're going to have to trust me on the artistic side of things. Only if you trust me not to let your vision collapse under its own weight. He shot back. Their collaboration didn't improve much in the following days. They disagreed on nearly every element, from the size of Ava's proposed sculpture to the color palette of the murals. The tension was exhausting, but it wasn't without its moments of unexpected clarity. One afternoon, while reviewing potential sites, Ava noticed Liam lingering near a crumbling brick wall covered in faded graffiti. She approached cautiously, her irritation from their earlier argument still simmering. Something caught your eye? She asked, her voice tinged with sarcasm. Liam gestured toward the graffiti, a worn image of a family holding hands beneath a vibrant rainbow. I used to walk past this every day on my way to school. It's one of the first things I ever wanted to save. Ava's gaze softened. It's beautiful. We could restore it, integrate it into the larger mural. Liam turned to her, surprised. You'd do that? Of course, she said, scribbling a quick sketch in her notepad. It's part of the neighborhood's story, and yours. For a moment, the tension between them eased, replaced by something quieter and more personal. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Supporting characters. Their growing connection didn't go unnoticed. Ava's best friend, Grace, was the first to comment on it. Over drinks one evening, Grace leaned forward conspiratorially. So, what's the deal with you and Mr. Broody Architect? Ava rolled her eyes. There's no deal. We're just working together. Aha! Grace smirked. You've been talking about him a lot for someone you're just working with. It's complicated, Ava admitted, swirling her drink. We have history. History. Grace's eyes lit up. Do tell. Ava hesitated, then relented. She recounted her friendship with Liam, how close they'd been, and the painful argument that had ended it. By the time she finished, Grace's expression had shifted from amusement to sympathy. Sounds like there's a lot left unsaid, Grace said gently. Maybe this project is your chance to finally say it. Meanwhile, Liam found himself enduring similar teasing from his younger brother, Nathan. They were unpacking boxes in Liam's workshop when Nathan, ever the instigator, asked, So, when's the wedding? Liam nearly dropped a stack of books. What? You and Ava. Don't act like I don't see what's happening. Nothing is happening, Liam said firmly, though the flush creeping up his neck betrayed him. Nathan grinned. Right? You're just spending all your time with her because you love arguing about paint colors. Drop it, Nathan, Liam warned, but his brother's laughter followed him out the door. Challenges arise. As the project progressed, so did the challenges. An investor raised concerns about the budget, forcing Ava and Liam to make difficult compromises. Ava's ambitious sculpture design was the first thing on the chopping block, a decision that led to yet another heated argument. This sculpture is the centerpiece, Ava insisted, pacing the length of the workshop. Without it, the project loses its soul. And with it we blow the budget, Liam countered, his arms crossed. We can't risk the entire project on one piece. It's not just a piece, Ava snapped. It's the heart of this neighborhood. Why can't you see that? Why can't you understand that we have limits? Liam shot back. Not everything can be as perfect as you want it to be. His words stung more than Ava wanted to admit. She turned away, pretending to focus on her sketches, but her hands trembled. Liam, noticing the shift in her demeanor, softened his tone. I'm not trying to dismiss your vision, he said quietly. But we have to be practical. Ava didn't respond, her silence a fragile truce. Symbolic moments. Despite their conflicts, moments of connection began to emerge. One evening, Liam found Ava sitting alone in the library, her face illuminated by the glow of her tablet as she worked on a digital rendering of the mural. "Burning the midnight oil?" he asked, setting a cup of coffee beside her. "Something like that," she said, glancing up. "What are you doing here?" "Thought you might need this," he replied, holding up a weathered book. It was a collection of local history, filled with photographs and stories about Crestwood's past. Ava flipped through the pages, her fingers lingering on a photograph of the same graffiti wall Liam had admired earlier. "Thank you," she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. Another significant moment came during the mural's unveiling. A group of children from the neighborhood gathered to watch, their faces lighting up as Ava painted the final strokes. Liam, standing nearby, felt a pang of pride, not just in the project but in Ava. "You've made this place come alive again," he said quietly. Ava turned to him, her smile radiant. "I couldn't have done it without you," building toward the climax. But their progress was tested once again when Ava overheard Liam discussing the project with an investor. His words, taken out of context, made it sound like he doubted her abilities. "She's talented, but her ideas can be overwhelming," he had said. Ava's stomach dropped. Feeling betrayed, she confronted him later that evening. "You don't believe in me," she accused, her voice shaking. Liam looked stunned. "What are you talking about?" "I heard what you said to the investor," she continued, her anger bubbling over. "You think I'm too much." "That's not what I meant," Liam said, his own frustration rising. "I was trying to defend you. They think your ideas are risky, and I told them that's what makes them brilliant." Ava hesitated, her anger faltering. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never let me," Liam shot back. "Every time I try to get close, you push me away." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. "I'm not pushing you away," Ava whispered. "I'm scared." "So am I," Liam admitted. "But that doesn't mean we can't try." For the first time, they faced each other not as rivals but as equals, their shared fears and hopes laid bare. The breaking point started with a letter. Ava found it taped to her apartment door late one evening. A formal notice from the city council informing her that the centerpiece sculpture she had poured her heart into was being pulled from the project. The reason? Structural instability and budgetary concerns. Ava's stomach dropped as she read the words. She knew who was behind this decision. Storming into Liam's workshop, she found him hunched over a table, studying the final blueprints for the project. "How could you do this?" she demanded, slamming the letter onto the table. Liam looked up, startled. "Ava, what?" "Don't play dumb," she interrupted, her voice trembling with anger. "You convinced them to cut my sculpture. The one thing I refused to compromise on, and you went behind my back." Liam's expression hardened. "I didn't go behind your back. The council made the decision, and I supported it because it was the only way to keep the rest of the project on track." "You supported it?" Ava's voice cracked. "Do you have any idea what that sculpture means? Not just to me, but to this neighborhood, to the people who see themselves in it." "I know exactly what it means," Liam said, his tone rising. "But it's my job to make sure the project doesn't collapse, literally and figuratively. Your sculpture is ambitious, but it's a risk we can't afford." Ava shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "It's not just about the sculpture, Liam. It's about you not trusting me. You've doubted me from the beginning, and now you've proven it." Liam stepped closer, his frustration giving way to desperation. "That's not true, and you know it. I've supported you every step of the way." "Support?" Ava scoffed. "You call this support? Undermining me at every turn? You don't believe in me, Liam, and you never have." The words cut deeper than she intended. Liam's jaw tightened, his face a mask of hurt and anger. "Maybe the problem isn't me not believing in you. Maybe the problem is you don't believe in yourself." Ava froze, his words hitting her like a physical blow. She turned and walked out, leaving Liam standing alone in the workshop, surrounded by the remnants of their shared dream. The storm. The night before the unveiling, a violent storm swept through Crestwood. Wind howled through the streets, rain pounded against windows, and thunder rattled the bones of the old buildings. Ava sat in her apartment, staring blankly at the incomplete sketches of her sculpture. Her mind raced with doubts and regrets, replaying her fight with Liam over and over. Across town, Liam was equally restless. He couldn't focus on anything. Not the blueprints, not the project, not even the storm raging outside. His thoughts were consumed by Ava. He replayed their conversation, her accusations, his own harsh words. She was right, he had doubted her. But it wasn't because he didn't believe in her. It was because he was terrified of losing her again. Just as he reached for his phone to call her, his screen lit up with a text from Nathan. "The storm's bad. You might want to check on the project site." A midnight reckoning. Liam arrived at the site first, rain soaking through his jacket as he assessed the damage. The wind had knocked over scaffolding, and one of the murals was partially torn. But his heart sank when he saw Ava's sculpture. The partially completed piece stood precariously, swaying with every gust of wind. Ava arrived moments later, breathless and drenched. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. Without a word, she grabbed a tarp and began securing the structure. "What are you doing here?" she shouted over the wind. "Making sure this doesn't fall apart?" Liam shouted back, holding the tarp in place as she tied it down. They worked together in tense silence, the storm raging around them. As they struggled to stabilize the sculpture, the tension between them finally broke. "I'm sorry," Liam said, his voice raw, "for everything, for not trusting you, for hurting you. I never meant to." "Liam, stop," Ava interrupted, her hands trembling. "I'm the one who's sorry. I was so caught up in proving myself that I didn't see how much you've been trying to help." He looked at her, rain dripping from his hair, his eyes filled with vulnerability. "I've been trying because I care about you, Ava. I always have." Ava's breath hitched. "Then why does it feel like you're always pushing me away?" "Because I'm scared," Liam admitted, his voice breaking. "Scared that if I let myself believe in this, believe in us, you'll leave again." Ava stared at him, her heart pounding. For years, she had blamed Liam for their falling out, for not supporting her dreams. But in this moment, she saw the truth. They had both been afraid. Afraid of failing, afraid of losing each other, afraid of being vulnerable. "I'm not leaving," she said finally, her voice steady despite the storm. "Not this time." Liam's expression softened, hope flickering in his eyes. "Promise. Promise," she whispered, proving their love. As the storm began to ease, they finished securing the sculpture. Exhausted but determined, they stood together, drenched and shivering, staring up at the structure they had fought so hard to protect. It wasn't perfect, but it stood tall, a testament to their resilience, both as individuals and as partners. "You know," Ava said, her lips curving into a faint smile, "this might be the most ridiculous thing we've ever done." Liam chuckled, his laughter warm despite the cold. "And yet, somehow it feels worth it." They turned to each other, the weight of the storm and their shared history finally lifting. Without hesitation, Liam reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "We'll figure this out," he said, his voice steady. "Together." Ava nodded, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Together. The dawn of a new beginning. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Ava and Liam stood side by side, watching the neighborhood slowly come to life. The storm had passed, but its impact lingered, a reminder of what they had endured and what they had overcome. For the first time, Ava felt at peace. She had spent so much of her life running, from Crestwood, from failure, from love. But now, standing next to Liam, she realized she didn't need to run anymore. She had found her place, her home, and she wasn't going to let it go. The morning after the storm, Crestwood woke to a rare golden light breaking through the remnants of heavy clouds. The town square, once shrouded in shadows and neglect, now glowed with the promise of transformation. Ava and Liam stood at the heart of it all, surrounded by the tangible fruits of their labor. Restored facades, vibrant murals, and the towering sculpture they had fought to protect. The unveiling. The air buzzed with excitement as the townspeople gathered for the grand unveiling of the revitalization project. Children laughed as they darted around the square, their voices mingling with the soft hum of conversation. For many, this day marked not just the rebirth of their neighborhood, but a rekindling of hope. Ava stood to the side of the stage, her heart pounding. Public speaking had never been her strength, but this moment wasn't about her. It was about the people of Crestwood. Liam approached, his presence grounding her as he handed her a microphone. "You've got this," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. She nodded, taking a deep breath before stepping onto the platform. The crowd quieted as she began. "This project started as an idea," she said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "An idea to restore not just buildings but a sense of community, of belonging. Crestwood has always been a place of history, of resilience. And today, it's a place of new beginnings." Her gaze swept across the crowd, landing on Liam. This project wasn't easy. It challenged us, tested us, but it also brought us closer, to each other and to what truly matters. The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing through the square. As Ava stepped down, Liam was waiting for her. Without a word, he pulled her into a hug, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her doubts and fears finally lift. Rebuilding relationships. The days that followed the unveiling were filled with celebrations, but for Ava and Liam, the real work was only beginning. Their relationship, though stronger than ever, was still uncharted territory. They had spent years dancing around their feelings, and now they were learning what it meant to truly let each other in. One evening, as they walked through the neighborhood together, Ava paused in front of the library. It had been her favorite place as a child, a sanctuary where she had dreamed of worlds beyond Crestwood. Now, it stood as a symbol of the future she and Liam were building, not just for the town but for themselves. "You know," she said, breaking the comfortable silence between them, "I used to think leaving Crestwood was the only way I could succeed, but now, I realize it wasn't the town I needed to escape. It was my fear of failing." Liam looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "And I stayed because I was scared to leave. I thought if I held on to this place, I wouldn't lose myself." Ava smiled, reaching for his hand. "Maybe it's not about staying or leaving. Maybe it's about finding the courage to face what scares you, no matter where you are." He squeezed her hand, a quiet affirmation that they were in this together. The community's reaction. The revitalization project sparked more than just physical changes in Crestwood. For the first time in years, the residents began to feel pride in their town. Local business owners reopened shops, inspired by the renewed energy. The children who had watched Ava paint the murals now played beneath them, their laughter a testament to the neighborhood's rebirth. Mrs. Hayworth, ever the meddling matchmaker, took every opportunity to boast about Ava and Liam's work. "I told you they'd make a great team," she said to anyone who would listen, her eyes twinkling with satisfaction. Even Grace, Ava's no-nonsense best friend, couldn't resist commenting. "You and Liam are disgustingly cute," she teased over coffee one morning. "But seriously, I'm proud of you. Not just for the project, for letting yourself stay." Meanwhile, Nathan, Liam's younger brother, was quick to capitalize on the moment. "So, when's the wedding?" he asked with a grin, dodging a playful swat from Liam. A new beginning. As the weeks turned into months, Ava and Liam found themselves drawn even closer, not by the project but by their shared vision for the future. They continued to work together, combining Ava's creativity with Liam's precision to tackle new challenges. One quiet afternoon, Liam surprised Ava with a set of blueprints. "I've been working on this," he said, unrolling the plans on the kitchen table. Ava leaned in, her eyes widening as she took in the design. It was for a community arts center, a place where residents could gather, create, and celebrate their stories. "This is incredible," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "You did this for Crestwood?" "For us," Liam said, his tone soft. "This is where we started. Ava, I want to keep building it. Together." Her chest tightened with emotion. "I love it, and I love you." The words hung in the air, simple but profound. Liam's smile was slow but bright, and as he pulled her into his arms, Ava felt the last remnants of her old fears melt away. The moral of the story. Ava and Liam's journey wasn't just about saving a neighborhood. It was about learning to face their fears, to trust, and to love. They had spent years running from their insecurities, only to realize that the only way forward was through them. Together, they discovered that true strength isn't about being unshakable. It's about being willing to rebuild when everything falls apart. Their story became a beacon for the people of Crestwood, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, growth is possible. And as Ava and Liam stood together, watching the sunset over the revitalized square, they knew their story was just beginning.